Okay, I'll keep letting people, I'll keep admitting people as they join. But again, thank you for joining our spring community forum meeting. We hope we have a good agenda for you all tonight. I want to get started. Thank you to Cindy Cromer for notifying us of this. A past university communications communicator, neighbor advocate, Rick Reese has recently passed away. And I will post the article that she forwarded along in the chat in just a moment, but we want to recognize him for his diligent work in the past. I've heard great things about him, even though I never met him. And he really set the bar for community relations here at the university. I do strive to meet that same standard. And we just really want to thank him for that, for his dedicated work. If at any point in tonight's meeting you would like to ask a question of one of our panelists, you can either raise your digital hand with the reactions button down at the bottom, and those are timestamped, so we'll get to you in the order that you raise your hand, or you can post a question in the chat, and we will, I will read those out loud on your behalf if that's what you would like to do, and we'll just proceed that way. So one agenda item that has come up since sending out the invitation for this meeting is the Harbor Bay Development Project. So we're going to insert that at the beginning of our agenda this evening. And then after that, we will go into Ashley Hadfield with University Housing Project, then to our Chief of Police, Jason Hinojosa, Carrie Case, our Chief Sustainability Officer, Campus Mobility Hubs, Andrew King, as well as an additional project, and our Chief Facilities Officer, Robin Burr. So the question that has arisen is, what is happening with the Harbor Bay Development Project? So Jonathan, would you mind unmuting? Jonathan Bates is the Executive Director of the real estate area here on campus, and he has the most valid information.
Thanks, Sean. So we are aware of the Harbor Bay development concept. Harbor Bay approached the university with some preliminary conversations last fall, and presently the university is not engaged in any redevelopment negotiations or discussions that pertain to the West Fine Arts Building. That's similar to what we communicated last October, and that is still the same position that we are in with this development. We are not actively in negotiations or discussions with Harbor Bay on this development.
Cindy, you've raised your hand if you would like to unmute yourself.
Yes, so who was the point of contact, Jonathan, when Harbor Bay approached the university?
So Harbor Bay did approach myself and other leaders at the university with the proposal that's been circulating with the community, and had those initial conversations about the concept. We did tell them at that time that we were in a leadership change and that we were not interested in pursuing a redevelopment of the West Fine Arts property at that time.
So that's precisely what I got, was that the inquiry had occurred during the transition between presidents. So what is the new president's view on this?
We don't have updated information from the new president and his leadership team on West Fine Arts or this proposal, and so I'm unable to share his thoughts at this time.
Okay, so here's the obvious request. This is my third go round on this corner at University and 3rd South, starting back with President Smith, then going to the Project Universe. This is a very problematic piece of real estate in my life. It's taken up a lot of time. So I'm asking you to find out what the current administration anticipates doing regarding this proposal and report back to us at the next meeting. Is that feasible?
Cindy, I appreciate that feedback, and we will definitely share updates with this group and with you if we do enter into any negotiations or redevelopment plans for that property, just like we do with construction projects on campus proper.
Okay, this is my last comment on this. As I said, it's taken up a lot of my life going back to the mid-90s. I'm getting old. I'm going to write the president and ask him directly to respond. Thank you.
And Cindy, I can confirm that the president's chief of staff, her name is Laura Snow. If you want to reach out to her directly, she is aware of this. I have sent her the feedback that we've been receiving thus far, and she is going to be updating the president. He's only recently new to the position, and he is still trying to get his feet under him. So thank you for your patience, and we are working through the process to let him know exactly how the community feels about this development, this proposed development. That, again, for those of you who may not know, I've posted a link. This is an outside developer wanting to build something along University Street. This is not a university project, just a proposal at this time. And it would still have to go, Jonathan or Robin, it would still need to go through Salt Lake City, the council. There would need to be redistricting happening. And at this time, it's a non-starter for us.
Don, at this time, I'm not prepared to comment on the process that a potential project would follow. It's complicated and would depend on the methodology. But yes, what I will say, you stated correctly, is there would be a very in-depth process that the university would go through for a project of this nature on university land.
Perfect. Thank you for correcting that information. Okay. I do see Steve, I see your hand raised. Do you want to unmute yourself?
I think I'm unmuted. I'm confused then. Is this on university land or is it on private land? And is it subject to city's zoning or is it subject to university control? How big is it? I have very little background. I assume other people on the call don't.
Yeah, so I posted a link there for more information. Or Jonathan, do you want to take it off, or I'll try to do my best.
So my understanding of the project is that it does encompass a piece of university land as well as several privately owned parcels. University land is exempt from municipal zoning. Privately owned parcels do have to go through your standard university or standard city entitlement process.
Steve, does that answer your question?
Not really, but maybe Cindy and I can talk later. Is this the project that's the old LDS church property that's being proposed to be developed?
No, this is. Oh, go ahead, Jonathan. Sorry.
This is the former West. This is the former West Institute building.
Yeah, so it is an LDS church.
But I just want to be sure this is not the LDS church that has the fresco on the outside of it. That's just north of the Episcopal Church. This is on University Street and 3rd.
Okay, thank you. And I guess it's confusing because it sounds like the university thinks they have control or something to say about what's developed there. And on the other hand, it sounds like it's city property. So anyway, we can go in. I'm sure there's more important things to talk about. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, now we will turn the time over to Ashley Hadfield with Ivory Homes to talk about a new housing development coming to the university. It's already started. I'll post an article about this in the chat, but Ashley, turn the time over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, Sean, thank you so much. And I'm very excited to be here today. My name's Ashley Hadfield. I am the project manager for Ivory University House, which is led out by the Clark and Christine Ivory Foundation, which is the nonprofit arm of Ivory Homes. We are very excited about Ivory University House as we are excited to bring 552 new units onto campus. And at the end of the day, it's also really a social enterprise here at the U, as we are donating all the net proceeds from this project back to student scholarships. We will not be making any money off of this. As of right now, we have started construction, and we are planning for the first buildings to come online in fall of 2023, and then the remaining two to follow the year after. And so I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
So Ashley, could you give us a bit of an overview about the project, what the units are going to be like, what type of students are going to be living there, and some of the milestones that are coming up in the project? Yeah,
for sure. So right now, our campus plan, we have 4 separate buildings. These units will be single student living. So they're there will be no roommates, so no roommate drama. I think all of us in our college days can remember having some roommate drama back in the day. And then as part of this, we will have very programmed common cores where students will be able to go based on interest to be able to go engage. Right now, we are currently projecting these to be undergrad and graduate students who will be staying here as well. And as just for general construction and just kind of general phasing timeline right now, we've currently started the demolition on the old LDS Stake Center. And I don't think I mentioned this before, but the property is located kitty corner Mario Capecchi and South Campus Drive, and Sean's helping me out right here, right now. And so it will be on this 5.4 acres. And then, so we've already started demoing, and we're already in the process of starting construction, and those first 2 buildings will come on in fall of 23.
And when will demolition on the church house be again, the existing church house?
It's already in process.
Okay, perfect. Anything else you would like us to know about this project?
I think that's basically all I have. I'd love to take questions.
So one question is, what students will live there? What characteristics will they need to have? The same as any other university dorm?
Yeah, so right now we are planning to adhere to all all U of U's living standards right now. So that will be the same, and we will just be enforcing the same there. And then these will be undergraduate and graduate students are what we're projecting right now.
Graduate and undergraduate.
Yeah.
And this is going to be a church property. So are there, do they need to be students of the LDS faith to live there?
No. So this will be invited to all students. The only thing that they will have to adhere to is the set aside University of Utah standards, living standards, and that will be enforced on our property.
Okay, thank you. Suzanne, would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yes, my question has to do with, you have 500 and some units. How many parking places are you going to have? Is that parking above ground or underground? Will the title to the property still remain that of the LDS Church, or will it become Ivory property, or will it be state property or university property? My question about parking has to do with the impossible situation on Foothill already, to which the university, by adding housing there and in the married student housing, we used to call it, on the west side, will only exacerbate the situation on Foothill. So my question has to do with the ownership of the ground under the Ivory Tower and the mitigation of the Foothill traffic caused by these 2 big projects. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So I'll tackle the ownership first. This property is on a ground lease from the LDS Church, so title will not be changing. And then the second question on parking, we've done a lot of research and analysis on this. Right now we have 193 stalls, and this has gone through Met City Code. We have looked at it on a traffic engineering perspective here too, and this will help actually reduce traffic as we're bringing these students closer to campus too, and we're keep maintaining what that existing parking lot already is, so we're not adding any parking which was already there. And this will actually just be keeping the students closer to campus.
Sarah, mind going next?
Yeah, thank you. So I think my question follows up nicely to Suzanne's. And it's really bigger than this particular project. So if you would like to put it in a parking lot, using a pun there, to address some point later in the meeting, if appropriate, that is fine with me. But I want to, push back on the idea that creating more student housing reduces traffic, because we are very actively recruiting larger populations of students. There is intended student growth. So we're not actually reducing traffic. We might be slightly mitigating the number of new traffic that is added, but it does not actually reduce traffic. None of these building projects do. And then my second question, which is probably the one that's more broadly targeted, is what can the university offer, promise, do for the surrounding neighborhoods that are being negatively impacted by the construction traffic and the construction dust and debris that is happening, the dust clouds that are rolling into our neighborhoods, the mud and dust that are covering our roadways. Within a matter of months to a year, the entire Sunnyside strip will be, the north side will be under construction, and it's already a dust nightmare. And so I think the university has a little responsibility in mitigating those effects on the neighborhood. And so I'd like to hear from you all about what you will be doing to do that.
Robin, you're over most of our, you are over all of our
Yes.
construction projects.
Well-
Jump in.
Well, we should not be making dust or tracking mud into your neighborhood. We do have dust mitigations and measures in place for every project, and every university house has them as well. We've worked with them to make sure they have water access from our property during their construction to make sure they can, wet down the dust. Our contractors and Ashley's contractors have, mitigation in place as trucks leave the construction site to take the mud off their tires before they enter the roadway. If mud enters the roadway, contractors should be cleaning it up. And it's our job, my job, Ashley's job on her site, to make sure that we are being good neighbors. And if we aren't, we assume you'll let us know and we'll get right out there and have the contractor take care of it. But we do a pretty good job, I think, of managing dust and mud and things like that. We have, environmental health and safety people at the university who make sure we do as well.
But Robin, just as a quick follow-up, you said that we need to be letting you know. Can you be really explicit about who we call, who we email, who we text, what the process is, and how we can get a hold of somebody 24 hours a day? I have lots of video to demonstrate these dust clouds flowing over Sunnyside and the mud that's left as trucks try to turn out of that west housing development and back onto Foothill.
Okay, I think that our protocol is that you contact Sean and he reaches out to the appropriate people, and he would have access to Hadley as well, to Ashley Hadfield as well, if there were a problem on her site. But he usually, when he gets messages from neighbors, he passes it on to a group of us, and we respond as quickly as we can. If you have videos of dust clouds, please send them to Sean, because I would like to make sure that they stop.
Yeah, that's correct. I am always happy to be a resource for any request, for any demand for more information, or to help you connect with Robin's team or whoever. So you all received the Zoom invite from me, so you should all have my email. But if not, it's just Shawn, SHAWN.wood@utah.edu. And I try to be very responsive. Thank you for those questions. Lynn, we're going to jump to you.
So the building at this site is going to induce more problematic left-hand turns to get into the new institute, as well as access the Madsen Health Clinic that a lot of us go to. So I would like to encourage university to change access to the Madsen Clinic, because this building site is going to dramatically negatively impact entrance to the Madsen Clinic. So please try to adjust, do something about that. It's going to be a real nightmare with building that tower. Thank
We
you.
would be happy to look at that. I'm not sure I quite understand, but we can get together with.
Okay, so,
Ashley and-
so just quickly, right now we have to go up to
Here,
the. turn.
let me pull up a map, 1 second. So you're talking about this access point right now, because there's the median here, so you can't
Yeah.
turn in right here if you're driving up the hill. You have to come up to this roadway and either come through this parking lot or
Go
this.
all the way, yep. It's a real problem. That whole air access to the Madsen Clinic needs to,
We're not changing that roadway.
of course. Yeah.
Ivory
No, but it
University
needs-
House doesn't change that roadway access at
Okay.
all.
Okay, well, I thought the institute that you tore down was right here.
No, not this
No,
one.
no, it's
It's
on
this
the.
one right
it's
at the
there.
corner.
That's what I'm saying, the one at the corner, but it
Yeah.
doesn't matter because this whole thing is going to be developed, then that's going to make this access right here problematic. Anyway, take a
Yeah,
look at
Ashley-
that.
We'll look at it. We'll look
Ashley
at
Yeah,
it.
and Robin-
it's already a pretty big problem because how much traffic is on that road and what time that you try to go to the clinic. So anyway,
We'll take a look at it.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, and then last question before we move on to our next agenda item, where will the water come from to supply these new residents?
Yeah, so we have been working with Salt Lake City Public Utilities, and we have been able to find kind of a main. So we'll be coming off Foothill, and we'll be running a main that way.
Perfect. And then how many units again?
It's 552, and I will share with Sean. This is what we presented at Planning Commission. If you guys can see this presentation right here too. These are what the buildings will kind of look like, and this is the general layout right here too. So I will send that, and you can review as well.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
What will the price?
Oh, sorry.
What will the price point to live there?
We are currently still in works on that right now, so I don't have that information to share, but when it comes available, I will be sure to kind of relay that information on. But it will be current with what market is right now at the BU.
Okay, perfect. Thank you all. And thank you, Ashley. So let's move on to our next item. We are going to go to our interim chief of police, Jason Hinojosa, to give you an update about safety on and around campus.
Hi, thanks, Sean. I appreciate that. Oops. Oh, my camera just failed, so apologies. I don't seem to be able to turn it back on. Yeah, so I'm the interim chief here. I've been the interim for the last 13 plus months, so about 13 months and, well, 13 and a half months. I took over for Rodney Chapman, and we are still in the holding pattern, as it were, to determine who the next chief will be. In the interim, we've done quite a bit to rebuild the police department. We've had quite a bit of turnover, and we are working to basically get us back to the numbers we had pre-COVID. Understanding that there's a lot of safety concerns in and around campus, I'd be happy to attempt to answer those as best as I can for you. Yeah, I'll just go ahead and open it up to whatever questions. You're on mute, Sean.
Chief, I'll get us started. Could you give us an update on your on the new building that's being that's under construction in the Guardsman Way parking lot? That came out of the tragic murder of Lauren McCluskey. It was found that we desperately needed a new facility, and it's how far away are we from to completion from that?
So our move-in date is slated to be May 3rd. It's actually been pushed back several times due to supply chain issues. But yeah, the new building was born out of a tragedy after several shortcomings were discovered during the post-mortem of that event. So the new building is going to do a lot more to help us better serve the community. We actually have a community services division that really specializes in victim advocacy, and they have the appropriate workspace and setting to help and support victims as they come in. We actually have some updated technology in that building to help us with the overall safety of the campus. The current building we're in was built in 1947. And from what I understand at that time, it was only meant as a temporary building. So this building is pretty much outlived its usefulness by probably several decades. The new building is going to be located in what is basically known as the tailgate parking lot. We're located just north of UKids. So yeah, the idea of the building is to create a more inviting space, to actually have an area where people feel welcome to come in and hopefully feel more inclined to report issues that they see on campus.
Okay.
Wait, well,
So one question that is submitted by chat, is the university doing anything about the out of control fraternity parties spreading into the surrounding neighborhoods?
So that's a very good question. And that is an issue that we've been aware of for quite a long time. So until recently, Salt Lake City Police was responsible for staffing parties on Fraternity Row and ensuring that they were maintaining or operating those parties within the limits set forth in ordinance. Due to some pretty severe manning issues, they were not able to staff that adequately. So just very recently in the last month, the University of Utah Police Department has taken over that responsibility from Salt Lake City. We've had some successes, and we're still working with the Dean of Students and Greek Life to really bring that under control. If you live in that area, I know what you're going through. I've seen it. There's masses of people at these parties, lots of alcohol. They're not supposed to extend past midnight by statute, or actually rather city ordinance. They're supposed to be concluded at midnight. So we're working hard to make sure that when midnight hits, it's everyone's going home. We've had some educational interactions with the students or the fraternity members there to let them know that we're paying attention. We are conducting more conduct referrals to the Dean of Students for violations, and when needed, we are citing for those violations when they need to rise to that criminal level. So this is still very new for us, and there's quite a few people at these parties. So we're working with the Dean of Students to make sure that we can get these back under control and operating in a more rational way. But yeah, fully aware of that. We're working very hard to try to alleviate some of the situations that I know the residents in that area have endured.
So I just posted in the chat the contact information for the director of fraternities and sororities, Sorority Life. Her name is Jess Turek. And so if you contact her, she can investigate and move it through the discipline process that the university has internally. Jason, to answer another question, it says, I'm assuming your control ends at Fraternity Row and can't help with parties in the extending streets.
So that would be correct. So even at the fraternity houses, we are operating in Salt Lake City Police Department's jurisdiction. We've done that after coordinating with them. So anything that extends beyond that is going to be Salt Lake City. Now, I'm fully aware that some of these fraternities have what they call satellite houses. Those will have to be reported to Salt Lake PD. But if it's at a fraternity home, Jess Turok would be the appropriate person to contact. My officers are staffing the sanctioned parties, but we do know that they do have some unsanctioned events. And I would highly suggest calling Jess Turok when those are happening so that she can let us know. And we can go over there and try to, get things back under control or dismantle the party or make those appropriate conduct referrals. Anything else on that particular issue?
Not that I see.
Here, is there an issue? There was fireworks just a couple days ago, not necessarily Fraternity Row, but I know it's out of your jurisdiction, but
Yeah, that would be Salt Lake City. I wasn't made aware of any illegal fireworks being displayed in that area. But if it's off Fraternity Row, that's definitely going to be Salt Lake City.
or South 13.
Sorry, Jonathan, you broke up there at the end. I at least I didn't hear you.
I just said that I believe the house was on 13th East, perhaps 4 South. I don't know for sure, but
Yeah, I
it's-
know that. I know which house you're talking about. It's right across the street from the law building. And usually on home football games, that house is very active. But that is not university property or anything affiliated with the university. That house would be under Salt Lake City's for jurisdiction for those party complaints. But I would venture to say the vast majority of the people at that party are students.
And I would imagine that that's going to be the similar answer for this next question, which is how do you want, how would you like us to handle university club sponsored parties not on campus?
So that's the trick, right? That's where it gets a little tricky because we know they are students, but they're not at the fraternity houses proper. They're at a different house. That would have to be a call to Salt Lake City. And we're still working on the coordination with Salt Lake City when these things come in, because we definitely need to partner with them when our students are involved. And they want to help us because if anything that the university can do to alleviate the pressure on them, since Salt Lake City is so short-handed, the better. So that is something that's still kind of a question on how the best way to handle that is. But like I said, this is still very new for us. We've only been there for about a month trying to handle these and get a grasp of these. We have made some progress, but I would say in the months to come, when we get our staffing levels up as well, we'll have a much better grasp of this and be able to coordinate with Salt Lake City better and get these situations not being quite the nuisance that they are.
All right. And Steve.
Well, I'm just wondering, I mean, there's been a lot of trouble with on-campus policing at BYU. I'm concerned about the advantages that the university sees, and maybe the neighborhood too, of having on-campus police handle these events rather than the city police.
Well, the biggest issue was the city didn't have the staffing to do it. And since the University of Utah Police Department, we are state certified, and our jurisdiction as law enforcement officers does still extend to anywhere in the state, while still respecting Salt Lake City's jurisdiction, we worked in an agreement to be able to work those. We are not BYU Police Department. The University of Utah is not a private entity, so we are not a private police force. We are subject to all the rules and regulations of peace officer standards and training. We are subject to GRAMA. We are subject to everything and have been compliant with all local, state, and federal laws that comply that have anything to do with or comport with accountability to the state. So in that regard, I understand where you're coming from, but the transparency issue that BYU PD had is a far cry from the issues that we have faced here at the U in the past in terms of policing. You're muted, sir.
What are the enforcement mechanisms? Are they the same as city police mechanisms, or do you have a separate judicial or enforcement review standards?
No. Our judicial process is exactly like Salt Lake City. So anything that's a misdemeanor or a minor crime goes to the city court.
Okay, good.
Anything that's a class A or above to felonies goes to the DA. But the difference we have with Salt Lake City is the university police are much more adept at handling situations with a conduct referral so that the university can handle that behavior administratively when it is appropriate. So that's what we try to do, because we actually see more success with the student behaviors with the conduct referral. Obviously, though, if there's a major crime or if there's something that's criminal in nature that is above or not appropriate for the administrative conduct process through the dean of students, we send them to court.
Thank you.
So Jason, should the neighbors call both departments or start with one or the other?
Well, if it has to do with Greek Row, and there's a large party, I would start with the Salt Lake City Police Department. All of the sanctioned parties, meaning the parties that are scheduled and that we're aware of, we will be there. And those are typically almost always on the weekends. If Salt Lake City isn't responsive, then you can call the University of Utah dispatch at 585 COPS, or I think it's 22677. And then we'll see what we can do to try to remedy that situation. And then always, if Jess Turek has her information out, that she would want to also be aware of that and get an email or a phone call or a voicemail. But if it's after hours and super late, if Salt Lake isn't responsive because they can't be, it doesn't hurt to give us a call and we'll drive over there and see if we can't figure something out and try to get that situation under control.
Thank you. And Rachel, thank you for the suggestion or your sharing your experience of having success with contacting the landlord. I think that's always a good option as well. Okay, Jason, thank you so much for your time. We're going to move on to the next item, which is our Chief Sustainability Officer, Carrie Case, to talk about the sustainability here on the University of Utah.
Thanks, Sean, and I'm glad to be with everyone tonight. I am going to actually share my screen really quickly, if I could, please. Hold on just a second. Of course, Sean, we tried it earlier and it worked just great, and now it doesn't want to work, right? Let's try this in a different way.
It is always the way that works. I want to address, while you're pulling that up, I do want to address something that was posted in the chat about, apparently a lot of you have experienced difficulties getting into the meeting tonight. I don't have anything set up any differently than any other Zoom meeting that you may attend. So I do not understand why you all had so much trouble. I apologize, even though it's completely out of my hands. I always work to make sure that these are as accessible as possible. And all I can say is that I'm sorry. And hopefully you can get into the next meeting the next time. Okay, Carrie, with that, let's take it to you.
Great. Sean, are you seeing those slides now?
Yep.
Fabulous. Well, again, I'm Carrie Case. I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer here at the university. It's the first time I've had an opportunity to speak with you fabulous people since I started about 1.5 years ago. And what Sean asked me to do tonight is to just go through and give a really quick update on some of the progress we're making around sustainability at the institution. And so I want to start with talking about what I mean when I say sustainability. I think often we think about the environmental impacts of our operational decisions. And that's a really important part of what we're thinking about when we talk about sustainability. Things like renewable energy, how we're using our water on grass or other landscapes, commuting, transportation. But at the university, we actually think about sustainability in a more holistic way and define it as the integrated pursuit of social equity, environmental integrity, and economic security for both current and future generations. And increasingly, we're paying attention to the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals. And you can see those environmental operational pieces in here with things like clean energy and clean water. But you also see those alongside things like quality education and reduced inequality. And so as I talk about sustainability tonight, I just want to frame it so that you all understand that when I'm talking about this, I really am talking about sort of the more robust questions about what does it mean for us to create a sustainable community and a sustainable future. So I want to focus on four ways that, 4 areas where the university is focusing related to sustainability that I think have direct connections to both our surrounding community and beyond. And those are education, research, operations, and healthcare. And I only have 10 minutes, so I'm only going to go through really quickly and hit some high-level highlights so that I can take questions. Let's start with education. We're an educational institution, right? It's what we're here to do. And so our ultimate goal is to be preparing graduates with the knowledge and skills needed to address the sustainability challenges in our community. And that starts in the classroom, right? And so I'm pleased to report that the majority of our academic departments, 78%, include at least one sustainability related course. Additionally, more than 1/3 of our University of Utah students graduate from a program that has at least one sustainability learning outcome, meaning that they've said students need to know something about sustainability in order to earn their degree. Now, is 1/3 enough? Well, in my opinion, of course not, right? I would like to see 100% of our students graduating being sustainability literate and ready to help us face the challenges that are ahead. But this is a significant improvement over 2017 when it was fewer than 8% of our graduates. So we're making steady progress, and right now actually working in our undergrad general education requirement to see how we can integrate these learning outcomes in that space. Obviously, as a major research institution, one of the ways we're contributing to a sustainable future is through our research. And that includes both contributing to better understanding of our sustainability challenges and helping with potential solutions. Currently, 65% of our academic departments are engaged in sustainability research in some way. Fortunately, we have the Global Change and Sustainability Center, which is the research arm of the Sustainability Office, and it is dedicated to interdisciplinary sustainability research and promoting that across the institution. If you're interested in what's going on with sustainability research, you can check out their searchable research inventory that goes across all of these 9 categories, and you can find that at environment.utah.edu. So let's talk a little bit about our operations, because this is a really important part of the sustainability landscape at the U. It's where we try to walk the talk and practice what we preach and demonstrate what we're hoping students learn in the classroom. It's also part of what we do to be a better member of the community by reducing our own impact on the surrounding community and on the planet. And we're making some progress. Right? So the U has reduced its greenhouse gas emissions by 27% since 2007, when we first started tracking. This is a pretty significant accomplishment because this has also been a period of, as you all know, significant growth at the institution in terms of our buildings and our student population. This puts us on track to achieve the 50% reduction goal that's outlined in our current strategic plan by 2025. And we're actually running ahead of schedule on our commitment to be carbon neutral by 2050. How are we doing this, right? How are we achieving these reductions? Primarily through changing the sources of our electricity to more renewables and by making our buildings more energy efficient. If you want to take a look at some charts tonight, you got to have some charts in one of your meetings, right? You can notice that in 2019, that little red chunk in that chart starts to get smaller. That's when we brought online a major geothermal project that helped us come up over 50% of our electricity coming from renewables. Right now, we're underway with a new 20 megawatt solar project that will bring us over 70% of our electricity through renewables. And on the efficiency side, because it's not just how we get our energy, it's how we use it, right? we have actually increased our building energy efficiency, or rather decreased our energy use per square foot by over 25% over the last decade. And that's through both better new buildings and also a really aggressive program to retrofit our existing building stock. Obviously, water's on a lot of our minds as we continue to be in drought conditions and really faced extreme drought last summer. The university has actually reduced our per person water use by 30% over the last decade. And this has been achieved through irrigation and interior plumbing upgrades. And right now we're making major investments to separate our grass, turf, and our trees and our tree watering to allow for less keeping lawns green while still protecting our precious trees as part of the state arboretum. And so our landscape crew and our awesome U facilities folks have really been working hard to figure out solutions moving forward to respond to the drought while still protecting our precious trees. Transportation, I know we had a few questions come in ahead of tonight about what the university is doing related to active and alternative transportation. I am fortunate to get to work with Ginger Cannon, our active transportation manager every day, who spends every waking hour thinking about this. And she shared a little bit with me that I'll share with you tonight, including the fact that over the last 4 years, we've added over 4 miles of bikeways on campus. And this is part of what has helped us earn and maintain a gold certification as a bike-friendly university from the League of American Cyclists. It also includes things like some recent improvements with bike lanes on Mario Capecci from Foothill to South Campus Drive, investments in a shared use path from South Campus to 1900 East, working with Salt Lake City on the 200 South reconstruction to enhance bike, pedestrian, and bus infrastructure, and a mobility hub at 200 South and University Street. She also noted the North Medical Drive, a complete reconstruction with shared use path on both sides of the road to the hospital entrance, plus expanded secure bike parking areas. And then on the Sunnyside and Foothill intersection, redesigning work with Salt Lake City to make it safer for bike and pedestrian connections and crossing. And these are just a few examples. For those who are really interested and those who have met Ginger, you can talk for a long time with her about active transportation improvements, and happy to talk more if people are interested. I also want to make a note about our healthcare system. I think when we talk about sustainability, we'd be remiss to leave this out, because when we think about the university's role in building a healthy and resilient and sustainable community, our role as a major healthcare provider is a big part of that. And so I'm happy to share that in the past year, UHealth has hired a dedicated sustainability team, working with those of us on main campus, completed an evaluation of our healthcare system's preparedness for climate impacts, and also completed the Practice Green Health Assessment for the first time, looking at their current operations, for which they received an Environmental Excellence Award for the work that they're doing. Obviously, there is much more sustainability work left to be done, always and forever. And for those of us who work in this space every day, I think we're keenly aware of that. And so I do want to share one thing that's on the horizon that I'm excited about. And that's our upcoming climate planning effort. Last year, we conducted the university's first climate resilience assessment to identify areas where we were vulnerable to future climate impacts, and also to begin gathering data to shape our decisions about what to do in response. This spring, we will launch a new climate planning process that will help us establish our goals and our strategies for increasing resilience to climate impacts, both on campus and in the surrounding community. And also help us, reaffirm our carbon neutrality strategy and identify ways to better include climate change in both our curriculum and research. Obviously, climate planning is not something that can be done in isolation. So we will be looking for community input in this process. And so Sean, I look forward to coming back to this group in the future once we've spelled out what that process will look like and sharing ways to give input. In the meantime, if you want to stay up to date with sustainability progress and what the university is doing, I'd invite you to check out our new dashboard at sustainability.utah.edu/dashboard. That's going to give you some high-level information. If you really want to nerd out and see how we're doing, I'd invite you to visit our sustainability tracking assessment and rating system, STARS submission. This is how higher ed institutions compare themselves on their sustainability work and includes data on over 100 different indicators. And I'm pleased to report that this year, the U achieved a gold rating for the first time, thanks to the good work that's been happening since long before I arrived. You can also follow us on social media or reach out to our office at sustainability@utah.edu. So there we go. There's my update. And I'd be happy to take any questions if we have time.
Thanks, Carrie. One question is, I heard the U hospital stopped recycling due to COVID. Do you know anything about that?
That is not my understanding, that there has been a blanket stop to recycling. There have been, to my knowledge, some definite changes in some waste procedures, but from every experience and all information I have, there is still a clear emphasis not only on recycling, but on waste reduction across hospital operations.
And Robin, you jumped in the chat, but Carrie, as the Chief Sustainability Officer, and to help answer this question, what do you think about the new bill proposed in the legislature that would curb the U's water use? We usually consume a huge amount of water in Salt Lake. I won't read the full question, but.
Yeah, so obviously, as a state employee, I am not in a position to advocate for any particular action with what's up at the legislature. And so, Sean, is there anything else you want me to say? I know, Robin, you said you chimed in.
I can chime in. We did review the legislation on our team. We got the clarification, I think today, that the legislation has been clarified to indicate that it is related to irrigation water use specifically, not domestic water use. And we reviewed it against our irrigation water use, our goals, the work, some of the work Carrie mentioned that we have underway to hydrozone our campus so that we are watering our trees and continuing to remove sod every chance we get. And we feel well capable of meeting those goals and support the legislation.
Thank you. Jerry, let's jump to you.
Yes, thank you. Carrie, I'm just wondering if there are any plans to do away with the mowers and edgers that are still using gas. They're real polluting when we walk campus.
Yeah, thanks, Jerry. Share that concern. It's something that we hear with some frequency. And I think we have been looking at other alternatives. And I think as we're getting into our climate planning, those are some of the opportunities that we're looking at just to prioritize where we can make investments. Fortunately, I can tell you both from personal experience and from past institutions, some of the technologies in that space are getting better, which allow landscape crews to really keep up with the demands of their position without all the pollution that come from those other areas. So yeah, thanks for that. And it's something we're definitely looking at.
And simultaneously, we are trying to limit any installation of new sod to recreation areas. And we are actively working year by year to remove some of the sod that we have, while still making it a campus where students can sit in the grass and have lunch, right? We don't want to take all of that away, but we do understand the water consumption issues.
Thank you. Suzanne.
A quick question, Carrie. I applaud 4 miles of new bike paths and the Mario Capecchi $1 million sidewalk there, which was much needed. But absent, again, and I'm a broken record. For those of us accessing the campus or Research Park from the East Bench, where there is less public transportation than from any other region of the city, there is no adequate way to bicycle to the university. And the Councilman Dugan is interested in this. The mayor is interested in this. UTA is moderately interested in maybe doing something. UDOT is a major obstacle, and the university could play a very important role in bringing these parties together to find a solution finally for Foothill. I implore your office and the university, as you develop these dormitories, these apartments, taking away one right-hand turn at Sunnyside does not solve the problem of getting to the university from the East Bench on a bike. Please take an active role and be a litigator or instigator, whichever you prefer.
Thanks for that, Suzanne. And I know this is something that is on our active transportation manager's radar, and I appreciate that comment, and definitely something for us to continue to make sure that we're doing everything we can to come up with good, safe solutions for our peds and bikes in that space.
All right, thank you. Jan, if you posted a couple of questions in the chat, but if you want to unmute yourself, I do want to make sure that we have time for our last two presentations. So just keep that in mind with questions, if you don't mind.
Yeah, just really quick. Has the U ever done a study to determine how much of the traffic on Foothill, as a follow-up to what Suzanne just said, it directly relates to the University of Utah, people using that artery to get to the U?
I think I would defer that question. Is Colin still on?
Or Andrew.
Or Andrew?
They're both on.
Yeah, I think Colin is on, and I don't have an accurate answer to that at this time. There might be something somewhere that states how much of that Foothill traffic is generated by the University of Utah Research Park. I don't have those numbers right now, if we do.
I think the city has some numbers when they've put traffic counts at different places on Foothill and before the U and after the U and Research Park. I would try to get it from the city.
I know traffic counts. We had someone come from the city and UDOT and speak to our community council. There's 48,000 daily cars that they tracked in 2019. And so it's gone up much more. It's now 2021. And the Foothill was built for 33,000 cars.
So what we can do is for any question that we don't have an answer to, if we need to gather that data, we will include those numbers in the recap piece that I'm going to be producing after this meeting. And then I email that out to our email list, and we ask that the community chairs share that again with your groups. It will have a recording of this, and then it will be clearly outlined the answers to all of the questions. So thank you for everything. Andrew, Steve, I'm going to ask you to, if you wouldn't mind, either emailing me directly your question or posting it in the chat so we have a record. And then
I can't chat for some reason, and I just want her to tell us on the statistics, do you include the medical buildings and facility, and do you include Research Park? And what's your jurisdiction over those two areas?
Yeah, that's a super complicated question, actually, but the short answer is mostly yes on our hospitals. There are some of the remote clinics that aren't included in those numbers, and it depends on Research Park, the different properties in Research Park. But happy to talk more. I know we're short on time, but happy to talk more about the details about that. And it just depends on whether we are the ones with operational control over and paying the utility bills in those spaces.
All right, Carrie, thank you so much for all this really helpful information. Andrew, we are going to come to you for the mobility hubs. And for the life of me, I can't remember what your other thing is. I know it.
It's
but-
just the mobility hubs today.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
It's just mobility hubs. And so many of the questions that people are asking serves as a fantastic segue into this conversation about mobility hubs being a part of this bigger conversation about transportation, right? And I think everyone's keenly aware of some of the transportations that we have. I'm going to go through a recent study that we did called Mobility Hub Study. Let me share my screen. Before I jump into that, I'll mention that these mobility hubs, is everyone seeing my screen okay? Sean, is that coming through? These mobility hubs, we understand, are not a silver bullet to all transportation problems and issues on campus. But I think what this will illustrate is that we are trying to take chunks away from this problem and address it as best we can. We are working, as I'll explain, with local community partners. So jumping into that, so in 2019, starting in 2019, the University of Utah reached out to UDOT, UTA, Salt Lake City, WFRC, who's our local MPO or a metropolitan planning organization, and the VA. We wanted to get everybody to the table to talk about some of the mobility issues that we were experiencing in this area of Salt Lake City. So our primary objectives in this effort were to increase access and convenience of multiple modes of transportation while supporting reduced single occupancy vehicle trips, right? We want to do everything that we can to give people good options, alternative options, I should say, to vehicles, which are accommodated very well. We want to continue to give people the option to use their vehicle, but for people who are interested in other options, we want to make those as convenient as it is to drive a vehicle. We wanted to create a more seamless and desirable experience for transit-linked trips, manage private mobility service to align with local goals, and improve safety and mobility access to and from the University of Utah. We think that this in part will kind of be the next big leap that we get to take from a transit and alternative modes of transportation on campus. When TRAX came in and was extended to the University of Utah, and since then, we have seen transit use steadily grow until the last couple of years. We're right at about 48% of our campus population comes to campus in a mode other than their personal vehicle. Again, we are looking for what we can do on campus to up the ante, right? To get that number over 50%, over 55%, over 60%, and grow it as much as we can. So let me talk a little bit about what a mobility hub is. Simply said, it's a series of large or small improvements clustered together for the purpose of adding convenience and accessibility to various modes of transportation. Those modes can be bike, they can be walking, they can be scooter, TRAX, bus, they can be any of these different modes of transportation. We want to make them convenient, accessible, so that it is easy for people to use the mode that they would prefer to use. Here are a couple images that just illustrate large and small improvements that have been made. Here's a little concept drawing that shows a simple mobility hub that has car sharing opportunities, ride sharing, bike parking, e-bike services. Anyway, kind of all of these different components that we're all trying to build into this. So why do we need mobility hubs? I talked a little bit about that already. And I think what we have seen in the state, what we've seen in Salt Lake City, is also true for the University of Utah, and that is that we are growing. We want to do everything that we can to grow smart. We understand that there are implications and consequences to growth. And so we're doing what we can to manage that growth. We know that the University of Utah, there's an increased desire and demand for students, faculty and staff. Our health sciences, as well as Research Park, are all places that we're seeing high demand for growth and change. Making sure that we're doing that, we're managing it appropriately and managing it in a way that does not negatively impact all of us to the greatest extent that we can. Mobility is changing. I think all of us can say 10 years ago, mobility is very different than what it is today. We have Lyft and Ubers, we have bike share programs, scooter programs, lots of these different opportunities to use various different modes of transportation. We want to be able to address and accommodate where we can. Carrie gave a great presentation on sustainability, and transportation is a huge component of achieving our carbon neutrality goals and other sustainability goals on campus. And then address the unique transportation needs of the University of Utah. We are tucked up here in the corner of the Salt Lake Valley. We have very, very unique transportation needs and demands. So this study was going to be an opportunity for us to work with these partners to address those to the greatest extent that we can. So this is a very brief summary, and I've got a link at the very end of this presentation for anyone who's interested in looking at this whole study. But here's kind of a brief slide that talks about some of the study results. So what we found out is we did some analysis to find out where our campus population was going and where that they tended to focus on. We identified 3 areas on main campus plus several areas in Research Park that seemed suitable for a type of mobility hub. These different hubs are going to vary in size and complexity of what they accommodate. The one near South Campus Drive would obviously be near a track station. The one near Mario Capecchi and Wasatch Drive, also near a track station. One that is proposed along 2nd South is not by any track station, so it would clearly be a much smaller facility. I've got a small list here. I won't read all of those out loud, but a small list of potential programming possibilities in these mobility hubs, again, to add convenience and services to these stations. So I'm going to conclude my presentation with just 3 very conceptual renderings that were put together as part of this study. This is a rendering of a potential design for the medical center track station or medical center mobility hub. You can kind of see some of the elements of that. To orient people here, this is the medical center track station. And immediately adjacent to that would be a series of stalls, conveniences like covered areas, charging stations, seating areas, places for buses and shuttles to stage. Additionally, a new component of this that's under construction right now, you can see faintly this bar that's running through here. This is a new pedestrian bridge that's being constructed as part of the Helix project. That pedestrian bridge is going to be accessible to transit riders who will be able to go and use that to safely cross Mario Capecchi Drive and have immediate access into the hospitals. So lots of different components with that. This is the only one of the 3 that we are actively pursuing a pathway forward, funding and other things associated with that. It's not in place yet, but this is the one that we're putting our immediate focus on. Another quick rendering of 2nd South. I know that there was some interest about 2nd South and what was going on there. We have met with Salt Lake City and other partners. This is currently an unfunded project at this time, but one that we're still excited to see happen at some time in the future. Likely what you would see is a series of improvements along University Street and 2nd South for pedestrians and bikes, as well as some pull-off areas for buses and shuttles, as well as shelters for people to kind of get a little bit out of the weather or the sun. And then the last one is the South Campus Station. Again, this is kind of an unfunded one right here. We're still working a little bit on the siting for this one as well. But again, you see a series of bike and shuttle and bus opportunities. This one, we thought it would be a great opportunity to introduce a cafe use. Maybe there's cafe or other retail opportunities to serve people that choose to commute to this area of campus.
What street is that, Andrew?
Yeah, let me go back. This is South Campus Drive right here, and just off of this rendering would be the South Campus track station. But again, the exact site of this particular mobility hub is still very debatable. We haven't pinned that down yet. So I'll just close. I mentioned at the beginning, we know that this doesn't solve all of the problems that are coming our way. We are working to the greatest extent that we can with our partners in UTA, in UDOT, in Salt Lake City, and others to come up with solutions. People mentioned bikes and bike lanes. We have built quite a bit on campus. We are equally interested to see those improvements extend to our communities, to the streets that serve University of Utah, and we are actively working with Salt Lake City on improvements that will extend along some of these streets that lead up to the University of Utah. So mobility hubs are kind of the end destination here, but certainly not the end of all improvements and things that we're looking to do to help provide additional options and other solutions for people to get to campus. Questions or comments?
Yeah, Andrew, a couple have come in through the chat. This first one probably isn't for you. So it says, it basically asks, why must the University of Utah keep growing? Perhaps we should just stop growing. I do not speak for the president, but as an employee here at the university, we all want to make sure that our employer is successful. We are on an upward trajectory in our research, the medical center. So growth, halting that growth is not in the best benefit of the university to reach more students, to educate our state. So you may not like that answer, but it doesn't seem to be stopping, and there's very few things that we can do about that right now. We are on an upward trajectory, as all presidents have tried to drive the reputation of the university. Andrew, here is a question for you. Have you retained land for the mobility hubs with so many new buildings being planned on campus, and both in the medical and main campuses? And then also, could you show us where the Research Park Hub is again?
Yes, the Research Park Hub was not on my map. I apologize for that. So I don't have a map to illustrate that. We have 3 different mobility hubs that we're looking at in Research Park. One is along Airpine Drive, closer to the Wakara intersection. And then the other 2 are both on Chipeta Drive, in various different places along Chipeta Drive as you make your way over to Wakara.
And what is the timetable to get these constructed and operating?
Very broad. It's a lot of infrastructure that we're talking about. Let me answer 2 questions here. First one is, we are doing the best that we can to preserve land for these mobility hubs through planning efforts, through just the simple preservation of these spaces so that we can accommodate them when we know exactly how they're going to be programmed and what their siting needs are going to be. The other question about timing, like I said, we are actively pursuing the medical center mobility hub station. It is currently unfunded, but we are hoping to get funding to support that and be able to put some improvements in that. UTA, we're partnering close with them. They have some federal dollars earmarked for that project that we're hoping to capitalize on to get those improvements. All of the other hubs are currently unfunded, but we are hoping to make those subsequent improvements over time, probably within the next 5 to 10 years.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your presentation. And we are going to jump into our last presentation of the evening. Robin Burr, our Chief Facilities Officer. We'll turn the time over to you.
Unmute. Sorry. Thank you, everyone. Good to see you all. And this presentation is going to follow the format you're accustomed to seeing from me at every meeting. We will talk about big projects that are in programming and design that you will see heading into construction in the next couple of years. We've got quite a few of them, starting with the photos on the bottom left, Collert Village, 4th Wing, our housing project, our new Applied Sciences building. You see the picture of the William Stewart building. It will renovate and expand that, and I'll go into more detail. Our new medical education building, continuing to the right side of the page, CVRTI, which is our Cardiovascular Research and Training Institute expansion, Impact Health and Prosperity Epicenter, a project of our business school, an expansion of our Dumpke Gymnastics building, and then Huntsman Mental Health Institute, HMHI, a new research building in Research Park to the east of our current HMHI building, formerly called UNI. And then we'll go into our active construction projects, with which many of you are aware of because you see them and feel them. Again, starting on the lower left, the Meldrum Theater, which will be going in the old Einar Nielsen Field House. An expansion to the Kennecott Mechanical Engineering Building on the north side of campus. Up at the intersection of North Medical Drive and North Campus Drive, the roadway work and the parking garage, which is starting to come out from under the ground, and then continuing clockwise across the Catherine F. Kirk Center, the Huntsman Hospital expansion project, and then the Helix building, which Sean mentioned, that you see just about to top out on the steel on Mario Capecchi Drive, just across from Primary Children's Hospital. And then our annex is demolished, being turned into a parking lot. Chief Hinojosa talked a bit about the public safety building that's almost done, and then West Village replacement. So I'll walk you through each of these one slide at a time and give you a bit more detail. So starting in on Collard Village, many of you know that Collard Village student housing opened a couple of years ago, 2020 actually. It was designed as an X-shaped building and we only built 3 of the 4 legs. We are getting ready to build the 4th leg, which will add about 430 beds in that area. You can see it on the map, just in our southeast corner of the main campus. And that project will start construction in June of this year, take about a year, and be open for the fall of 2023. Our Applied Sciences building, if you look at the little site plan over on the, well, actually the kind of in the wrong place. The William Stewart building sits just to the south of Crocker Science, off of President Circle. It was built as a school for College of Education, opened in 1919. We will be renovating it and building a major addition to it. And it's going to become the home of physics, astronomy, and atmospheric science. If you look over at the rendering on the right side, you can see University Street. You can see Crocker Science building, the Stewart building in the back, and just the massing of this new addition. And then to the right of it is PMT, Pioneer Memorial Theater. You are going to start to see activity on this pretty soon. I understand that in the next week or two, the contractor is going to go start staking the site footprint of the building. So you'll begin to see how big it is. The siting of the building will take out a few trees, but it was really located to preserve that major grove of old trees there. So that will.
It's giant.
It's 100,000 square foot addition. Yeah, it's a big building. It looks big in this rendering. It's no taller than Crocker Science or PMT, but rendered with no materials and no texture, it looks like a giant mass. It is going to have an observatory for astronomy on the roof, which will be quite cool. And we hope to finish that in the spring of 2024 and be open for the fall semester of 2024.
Robin, could we go back to CalArt for a second?
Sure.
The question is, is there any parking being added for CalArt student housing?
Well, so if you look at the site plan where this gold ring is, that's where the 4th wing is going. It's taking out about 80 parking spaces. However, the annex, which sits just to the south of it, has been demolished. If you see it now, they are pouring curbs, gutters, sidewalks, and installing light poles and doing grading and drainage. And as soon as the asphalt batch plants open in mid-April, they will pave that lot, and it's going to add about 300 spaces. So there'll be plenty of parking just to the south of Collard Village.
So to the next project, the Helix, no, not Helix, Applied Science. The question is, where is this in relative to the Gulch? And you can kind of see the Gulch.
Here is the Gulch right here.
Perfect, thank you.
So this is Crocker Science here, and the Gulch sits in front of it and off kind of diagonally. So we'll kind of wrap the gulch.
And then what will happen with the current physics building?
We will demolish, at a minimum, we plan to demolish the rectangular portion of Fletcher Physics, which is up on the very thin columns. We're still determining whether we keep that large lecture hall in the rotunda. We have some evaluation to do, and we're going to wait about a year before we make the decision. But we will, at a minimum, take down the rectangular bar that's up on pin columns.
Okay, perfect. I think those are all for now. There is a question coming up about Helix. Is that your next?
I'm not sure if it's when we get into construction ones, we'll get to Helix.
Okay, I'll save this question.
Yeah. For then. Okay. Not much of an update here since the last one. We're working on the medical education building design, which is going to sit in the nursing school parking lot, the parking lot north of the nursing school. We're very early in concept design. We had some site challenges and have been through quite a few iterations of it, but we believe we've settled on a location and a design, and we hope to start just relocating utilities out of the way of the building this summer and to be open for the fall of 2025.
Thank you. Another one has come on back to applied sciences. Are there any additional parking spaces being created for the applied sciences, or?
There are no additional parking spaces being created for applied sciences.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. CVRTI, this is a building up in Research Park. It's actually a combination of a few little buildings built over time. It's a pretty small addition, 8,500 square feet, but it's going to add some lab and office space for researchers just to decompress the space. It should start construction in March and be done by the end of this year. Impact Health and Prosperity Epicenter. This is a project we've mentioned before. It is a business school project. It is similar to Lassonde Studios in that it is a live-learn community for entrepreneurs. And in this case, it is, whereas Lassonde is maker space, this is really entrepreneurs interested in improving global health and education. 775 beds, and these two centers, Global Health and Prosperity and the Sorensen Impact Center. And it is going just to the east of Lassonde Studios. You can see on the map, there is Lassonde and there is the site where it will go.
And it's actually going to be built on a existing parking lot. So
Correct.
We're losing spaces.
Correct, yes. So in terms of parking spaces, I can say a few things. We have a 1,400 car garage under construction up near the hospital. We have a lot of hospital employees parking on the main campus. And once that structure opens and there's movement up the hill for hospital employees, we think it's going to open up quite a few spaces on main campus and help. Simultaneously, Andrew and I and Colin are getting ready to embark on a transportation and parking study that our trustees have asked us to take up sooner rather than later to determine what, if anything, we need to do in terms of adding parking to the campus. So that will be coming in the next 6 months. Dumpke Gymnastics, this is a very small renovation, 6,100 square feet and a 1,000 square foot addition, just filling in a cutaway corner of the building now. This one is mobilizing to start construction at the end of March as our gymnasts wind down from the season, and to be done by the end of this year so that it's back in use for our gymnasts by next January. Huntsman Mental Health Translational Research Building. This is in Research Park, as I mentioned. It's going to sit just to the east of our current HMHI project, formerly called UNI, has both in and outpatient facilities there. It's going to be a 185,000 square foot research building and a minimum of a 500 stall parking garage. And it is slated to start construction about a year from now. It's just in programming and will probably take a couple of years to finish. Meldrum Theater at the Field House. This project, we've been doing a seismic upgrade to the Einar Nielsen Field House for the last year. That is wrapping up, and we are just this week starting construction on this 380-seat thrust theater that will go into the belly of the field house building. And we expect it to be done by the end of this year. And it will be shared between PMT and the theater department at the university. We have larger venues between PMT and Kingsbury and Gardner, but we don't have a small, intimate space for small productions. So this will kind of fill out our sizes of theaters. Kennecott Mechanical Engineering. If you live on the north side of campus, you can see this project. They're drying in, putting on the roof and sheathing the exteriors and building the space out. And it's to be finished in May. It's mechanical engineering, big industrial kind of lab spaces, just big workspaces for building things and trying things out. This is the garage and roadway improvements. If you live up in Federal Heights or near the northeast corner of our campus, have reason to go there. You will know that this is one of the most challenging and disruptive projects we've had to tackle on this campus, because it is doing work at a major intersection, a major ambulance pathway and hospital access pathway, as well as the path to the front door of the JCC. We are working our way through the very challenging road work areas, have done the lane work on the north side of the road and have moved traffic so that we can start working on the south side and the intersection, and then we'll move up the hill. We're building this 1,400 stall garage. We are introducing a under road tunnel that allows cars going to the garage to peel off early and go into the garage before they go up the hill too far. This is going to take the remainder of 2022 to complete. Will be a fantastic addition to our campus when it's done, but as I said, has been very, very challenging along the way. Catherine F. Kirk Center. This is the 50-bed addition to the Huntsman Cancer Hospital. 222,000 square feet, a big building. It's 8 stories tall. It's introducing 50 dedicated bone marrow transplant beds, which will give the facility really state-of-the-art, space in which to save lives. Offices, imaging, surgery, and clinic decompression, meaning they're taking clinics that are existing in the current hospital and spreading them out, giving them more breathing room so that they function better. And this too will complete at the end of the year and open in early 2023. And here's Helix, Healthcare Educators, Leaders, and Innovators Complex. This building you can see from Mario Capecchi. It's 5 stories tall. It mimics the height and mass of Primary Children's ambulatory building. It is topping out steel. You can see the sheathing starting to go up on the around the outside of the building. They're framing inside and starting to do rough mechanical, electrical, and plumbing work. They are starting in February initial work on the pedestrian bridge that will cross Mario Capecchi, and that means they're going to be start working on the footings that will hold up the bridge. The bridge will be fabricated off-site in 2 sections and assembled in place. So it is under construction, has been since last February, and will be complete by March of 2023. So we've got about 14 months to go on this. And
so
Tanya said there was a question.
Yeah, can you explain the name a little bit? Do you know how we landed on this name since?
I could get more background. I listened in on the discussion. this really is a building that it is part of getting out of the old school of medicine so we can take it down. It is a building that houses both our educators and our healthcare providers and our researchers. It is an office building. And they were looking for a name that captured everyone who was going to be in it, had a medical science reference and in the helix. And I think that, it came from the double helix DNA. And I think when you see the building finished, there are these screens that are being inserted into the facades of the buildings. And what you will see when they are up is that they are kind of an artistic, abstracted double helix running vertically through them. So it's a science medical term.
All right, thank you.
Just to clarify, I think my point was that perhaps there should be a silent P on that because it is all physicians, which is a misnomer because there's pharmacy, dentistry, nursing. There's a lot of people that are healthcare educators, leaders, and innovators up on that campus that are not physicians, but all the literature that's been published has made it clear that it will only be filled with School of Medicine and physicians.
Well, pharmacy, all of the other pharmacy, dentistry, nursing, they all have their own buildings already that house their healthcare educators and leaders, but this is really a component of the replacement of the School of Medicine. So building 521 that built a big brick building that says School of Medicine on it, we need to take that down, and it has a lot of physicians in it who need a home, and this is their home.
Totally, that building needs to come down. Yes,
right, and they are School of Medicine and hospital physicians.
The name just feels a little disingenuous, and I know that wasn't your choice, but I'm just sharing what I'm hearing across the health sciences community.
Interesting. Okay, I hadn't heard that, but okay. Oh, that's interesting. An interesting thing to know. Yeah. But you're right. I didn't name it. I did listen. It's going to be a beautiful and functional building. It's going to have, you can see, as Sean noted, this bridge that takes you across Mario Capecchi Drive. There's going to be a cafe on the corner right there. So just as you come off tracks, there's coffee. You go into the building and you can go right up the elevator and cross the bridge, which we think should help with traffic and inclement weather and all kinds of things. Annex demolition, as I mentioned, the annex is gone. I think we've been talking about taking that down for the last 50 years. So it was quite remarkable when it came down. We're glad to be adding 300 parking stalls there, both for the student housing and also to support the Huntsman Center events that happen in that area. And as noted, that should be completed before graduation, first week of May. New public safety building we talked about. You can see it all there when you drive by. We're just finishing up, as Chief Hinojosa said. We've had some supply chain issues. It's taken us a long time to get glass for the windows and roofing materials and things that were committed and promised and then got held up somewhere. So we'll be really grateful when this building is finished. And then West Village, really no change here. Work is underway. We know there was a lot of alarm about the loss of the trees. We were concerned as well. We are going to put lots and lots of trees back, more than we took out. We're going to put as large trees possible as we can, give them a good start and help them to grow. But this project work is going along well. Our goal, as we've said, is to have this housing open for the fall semester 2023. And that's all for me. Any more questions?
I don't see any in the chat, but if anybody would like to raise their hand or submit one. Oh, does the U consider moving trees rather than taking them down?
Andrew, are you better?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a contractor that we work with on a regular basis. Just about any tree that is movable size, we pay to move. That's always a preference.
Which is to say the trees at the West Village site were too large to successfully move.
We actually did move a handful of them that were smaller, but the vast majority of them were big, 50, 60-year-old trees that were far too big.
Okay, seeing no further questions. Oh, Sarah, you have your hand raised. I apologize.
Sorry, I know I've had a lot of questions and comments tonight. Just
you're
one
fine.
more, and I know that Dan's on here, and I hope maybe there's some other people who have some influence over transportation. Unless something has changed, the entrance into the new West Village for housing is being moved closer to Foothill, and there will only one entrance there. And I have some real concerns about the speed of downhill traffic coming down Sunnyside and across Foothill with an entrance and exit into that housing being so much closer to Foothill. For the first speed limit sign that goes from 40 to 30 is way past where that entrance is planned. And so I would just like those who have some influence over what happens along that road to hear that that is a neighborhood concern, and that we would very much like to see the speed limit be consistent across Foothill at the lower speed of 30, but also to be thinking ahead about how to mitigate potential catastrophic events that could happen as people come across Foothill on Sunnyside going 40 to 50 miles an hour, and then you have traffic entering and exiting so close to that intersection.
Andrew, we're not
No.
moving the entrances, are we?
No, we're keeping the existing egress or entrance that's there today. That alignment will not be changed. And in the future, we anticipate getting rid of that alignment and moving it further west for the reasons that you mentioned. We want to get it further away from the intersection of Foothill.
Great, I'm happy to hear that. In an initial plan, it had actually been moved closer to Foothill, unless I misunderstood. So I'm glad to hear that that's not happening and that maybe we're pushing it even further. Thank you. And please lobby for a 30 mile an hour or lower on the entire stretch of Sunnyside from the zoo to wherever we need to go. There's way too much pedestrian, school, and park along there to have a 40 mile an hour speed limit.
Robin, what are the funding sources for the housing projects that we've discussed tonight?
There is no state funding in any housing projects. We're not allowed to receive state funding for housing. All housing has to be self-supporting from revenue, rent charges. So what we typically do is we issue revenue bonds to build the building, and then we pay them back over time through rental revenue.
And then does the U pay any impact fees to the city for road repair? These many large projects require a lot of heavy trucks and machinery that are hard on road surfaces.
I am not aware, Andrew.
I
don't know. Let us follow
I
up
don't
on
know.
that. I don't, well, let's put that on the list to follow up on.
Arthur, if you're still online, I hope I found both of your questions, but if not, if you would repost the second one. Jonathan Bates, are you still online?
Yeah, the second one, I'm sorry, just went to something I've long wondered about all the facilities at the U. What provisions are made for future maintenance of these buildings? Does that come from public funding down the road, or is that taken into consideration when the project is first created?
So when we build an education or a research building, we go through the approvals process, we request state support for operations and maintenance for the life of the building. The state has a formula, cost per square foot that they allocate for any state building depending on type. So a lab building gets a different rate than a classroom building. So we do get state support for academic and research buildings. Hospitals and clinics are required to be self-supporting from their revenue, as is housing and all of our athletics buildings. They do not receive state support. Only buildings with an academic or research mission.
And the Ivory Housing Project that was discussed earlier today, it's my understanding that that is being paid completely, the construction costs, by Ivory Homes.
That is correct. The university has no financial interest in that at all, but as Ashley noted, the Ivory Foundation is building it, maintaining it, and operating it. And when it reaches the point that it becomes profitable, all profit from the housing will go to a university scholarship fund.
Perfect. Thank you. Judith, you've been very patient. We'll go to you next.
Thank you.
Hi, I just wanted to point out Esther Hunter is here. She's the head of the East Central Community Council. And we've had a visiting police officer come to all of our meetings, and she was kind enough to post the name of our detective. Now, he doesn't cover all areas around the university, but he does cover the East Central area. And she posted his phone number, and he specifically said, if you have too loud a partying situation going on, call me. And his name is Meinzer, and his number is 801-799-3625. And Esther put it in the chat in case anybody wants that. I think that they're wanting to be very proactive with regard to the beer pong parties out on the lawns.
Perfect. Thank you for jumping in with that information. And then the last question, Jonathan, I think you're still online. Are there any updates for Research Park?
So it depends on which aspects of Research Park we're asking about. As far as the federal legislation and our proposed new protective covenants and design guidelines, there's no update beyond what was shared in October. However, Jen has shared a couple updates on investments that we're doing in partnership with with the city and UTA as far as transit studies. We were successful on a planning grant from the DOT that will result in about a $1.4 million study of the potential for light rail extension into Research Park, as well as the 4 South extension, and also into the Granary District. We also recently completed some active transportation trails or connectivity between Research Park and the main campus. It's the Arapeen Connector is what we refer to it as before. That construction is complete. However, the trail is not open until we reach some agreement with the federal Fort Douglas on the opposite side and can open that up. Those are really the updates I have at this time.
All right. We've gone a little over, but I very much appreciate everybody for hanging on the call. So with that, we will end our meeting. This meeting has been recorded. I'm going to, this video will be posted online in addition to a recap, written information, and that will be sent out in the coming days. Some of your community chairs are phenomenal, and they can get this turned around in about 24 hours or less. Mine will take a little bit longer, but definitely within 2 weeks, we'll get this sent out. I will send it to our email list, and we ask that our community chairs help us distribute it by sharing it with you all. So with that, thank you all and have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Everyone.